Well, I just want to say, please, everybody, be careful, be worried. That's the answer. Be worried. And if you're worried, you'll figure it all out and you'll be very careful and you might survive. First, I will say to you, I've said before, but I do own gold and silver.
Mhm.
If I were buying one right now, I would buy silver. Silver is down a lot from its all-time high. Gold is near its all-time high. So I would buy silver if I were buying one today. But I look at the commodity markets and I know that things are somewhat depressed, certainly supply demand. Oil has started rallying again recently, but oil was down 2 weeks ago, or a week, whenever it was. So I would rather be in commodities than in United States shares as we speak here in 2024. Yes, the U.S. for a time in history is driving people away from the U.S. dollar. As you point out, many of our friends are saying, wait a minute, they could do that to us. They could do that to me if I'm not careful. And unfortunately, that is a fact. And Washington doesn't seem to know or care what they're doing. I own a lot of U.S. dollars right now. And my plan is that when there's turmoil again, the dollar would go up as people look for a safe haven. I hope I'm smart enough to sell them if it happens. I don't know. Your next question should be, well, where will you put the money? And I don't have an answer. In theory, it should be the Chinese currency, but the Chinese currency is a blocked currency. So that's absurd. It cannot be the international currency if it's not convertible. So I don't know. Yes, I own some gold. Yes, I own some silver. Yes, I own some commodities. But where would you put your money if you could not put it in the U.S. dollar? And as I look around, I do not see the new competing currency. I have learned in my career that central banks usually do not know what they're talking about or know what they're doing. But I own gold. Have some right here in my pocket just in case. And yes, I am in the market to buy more silver. And if gold goes down, I will buy more gold. But if the whole world has to move from the U.S. dollar to gold, oh my gosh, there isn't the highest. Who knows how high gold would go at that point? I cannot count that high. So I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. And in times of huge crisis, the world always returns to gold, and we probably will again, but there's not enough gold to take care of the whole world unless the gold goes to 30,000 or something. Well, I just want to say, please, everybody, be careful, be worried. That's the answer. And if you're worried, you'll figure it all out and you'll be very careful and you might survive. I just want everybody to be worried because if I'm half right, there are going to be many problems coming up in their lifetime. And this is not easy. You have to do a lot of research and homework and be aware. I wish I had an easy solution, Adam. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be wonderful if I had an easy solution? Well, I have never bought nor shorted Bitcoin, so I'm neutral in that respect, except that I don't expect Bitcoin to be the new currency. I don't see most governments saying, oh, okay, if you want, this is the money, but if you want to use that money, you can use that money. Washington is not going to say, Adam, if you want to pay your taxes with Bitcoin, okay, send us the Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. That's not the way they think. They want monopoly, they want control, they want power. So one of the advantages of Bitcoin is no one can have a monopoly or power, I don't think. So I don't see Bitcoin coming to the rescue to replace the U.S. dollar. Maybe it will. I've made many mistakes in my life, but no, it's not for me. It's a great trading vehicle. I know a lot of people have traded a lot and made a lot of money. Many cryptocurrencies have gone to zero and disappeared, as you know, but I'm not trading any of them because I'm not smart enough. The currency you just described has been tried before. It's always led to currency collapse, as you probably know, and they may try it. That's why it's been done before many times, because central banks or central authorities look for a solution when they have a problem, and they look for the easy way. And the easy way is always just print more money. And whether you call it printing money or not, you can disguise it. They often try to disguise it, but what you just suggested, and it may come, is not good for whichever currency is happening. That's the U.S. dollar. That's the reason the U.S. dollar will go the way of the many other currencies. The British pound, for instance. 100 years ago, the British pound was the single most important currency in the world. There was no number two. Well, 50 years later, it's bankrupt. So all of this has been done before. If you can read some history, you can see, yeah, they did that once before. Twice before, 100 times before, and it never worked. I hope it works, Adam. That would be wonderful if they could save us all. They never have. Of course, they're going to do whatever they have to save themselves. Adam, they don't care about you and me. They're trying to save their own jobs, and they're going to look for the easy way to save their own jobs. And you said it. Crossing the Rubicon, of course they did. But all of these things, looking back, one step leads to the next step, and then the next thing you know, they say we can do anything. And so they do anything, and we all suffer. I mean, history's full of stories like this. I'm the first person to notice this. Hooray. Yes, that's what always happened. Human beings are still the same. We've always been human beings. We always want the easy way. We always want the free lunch. Don't worry, I want the free lunch too. We all do. But the free lunch has consequences. It always has. But that doesn't mean they won't try it. People will say, oh, we did it before, remember? Now we can just do a little more and everything will be okay. Adam, I back to the U.S., because I'm a U.S. citizen, I am stunned at the level of the debt now. I can count. I can see there's no way that my children won't have huge problems in their lifetimes. And maybe in my lifetime, perhaps. Hope I live long enough to see many big problems. But no, Adam, I know you can add and subtract. I know you can count. I wish they could in Washington. It's not just U.S. central bankers. I've seen central bankers everywhere, in many places. And the number of, there was a guy in India a few years ago who was very smart. He's gone, needless to say. You think back, and the U.S. has had in the last 100 years or so, a couple of smart central bankers. But you heard, a couple. In 100 years, two smart guys is not a good record. So I don't see anybody in our lifetimes who will get it solved. The problem, Adam, is if somebody runs and says, we got to solve this problem and this is what we have to do, somebody will say, oh my gosh, that's correct. And he or she will be elected. But after the pain comes at them, this is going to cause a lot of pain to solve this gigantic problem. Everybody's going to say, well, wait a minute, we didn't know it would be this bad. Yeah, they'll throw her out. They'll start with somebody else. They'll come for somebody riding in on a white horse who says, I'll save you. And the guy on the white horse or the woman on the white horse will ruin us all. Well, the way this has worked out in history usually is the debt gets higher and higher until the country has a serious debt problem. And then they come in with exchange controls. They say, okay, if you want to travel, you can only take $50. Or whatever it is, and this exchange controls get very tight, get very serious, and you and I cannot go to Toronto even, because that's considered dangerous. And the exchange controls get tighter and tighter, which means debt gets higher and higher for everybody. And then you have a debt crisis and a currency crisis, and it's not fun. Read back over past countries where this has happened. This happened to Britain in the 60s and 70s. You and I were both around then, and it was a mess. It was a gigantic mess. Britain, which had been the most powerful country in the world 100 years before, was bankrupt. But that's happened to many places. Spain, France, look at around the world, look at history. China has had collapses a few times. China's the only country I know of that's been on top 3 or 4 times, but that means they collapsed, totally collapsed 3 or 4 times. It was a nightmare for 100 years, 200, whatever, for decades, centuries. But then they turned around. But that did not mean, Adam, that they didn't have a gigantic collapse, civil war, bankruptcy, etc. in the meantime. Perfect description. I hope I'm that smart. I hope I do it. I can sit here and tell you exactly what's going to happen. Does that mean I'm going to get it right? Of course not. Gosh, I've made many mistakes. We all have, no matter how prescient we are. Many people have lost everything, even though they were geniuses. It's not the first time. Just once upon a time, a few decades ago, I made a huge play in the market, and I was so right. And then I did exactly the right thing, but a few months later, I'd lost everything. I was the smartest kid on the block, lost everything. I was so smart, I thought. So it doesn't matter what I tell you, Adam, it's the execution. And at the time, who knows? Something always comes out of the blue that I hadn't expected or that people don't expect. I wish it were easy. This is not an easy way to make a living. Everybody needs to do their own research, homework, awareness, because let's say that Joe told you what to do and you did it. But then if we was right, you wouldn't know what to do because you don't know why Joe told you to do it. And if you were wrong, you wouldn't know what to do because you don't know why Joe told you that in the first place. So my only answer is, please, this is not easy. Please learn what it's all about because there are going to be some bad times in the future. I don't know when or where, but please be prepared. Be worried and be prepared.